What's going on, guys? It is Tyson the Trainer here, back with another video, back with another episode of Sports Talk. And in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about hydration. So I think I've also touched on this topic in the past, but again, always learning, always changing things, and that's why I want to give you guys an update regarding what's been happening I guess, a little bit of information that I've kind of changed my opinion on, and so you guys can kind of understand, how you are hydrated, which is what they call basically hydrated for the most part. We want to make sure we're avoiding dehydration, because when you are dehydrated, even by a few percentage points, it can impact strength, it can impact mental performance, it can impact performance overall, it can create more mental fatigue, it can basically make you perform like shit for the most part, just because you are dehydrated. Okay, and this is very important, especially when it comes to game days or event days, basically things like that. When you're trying to perform at your best, you want to make sure you're going into the event and during that event keeping as hydrated as much as possible. So I thought, you know what? Why not retouch on it? Why not go on a little bit deeper on this so you guys get a good understanding about everything you kind of need to know about hydration for the most part. Cool. All right. So first and foremost, hydration. Water is not the only thing that hydrates you, even though water is basically what is hydrating us in our body, if that makes sense. So, what I mean by that is any liquid. So when we think about milk, juice, all these things, they are pretty much water, but they're not just water. They contain carbohydrates, they contain vitamins and minerals, they contain fat, they contain calories, they contain all these different things, and that's why we can't just, when we talk about hydration, we're not just talking about drinking water, because there are very many other different things that will hydrate you, and especially hydrate you more than water, which is an important thing, because if you're hydrated longer, or if you're able to hydrate yourself better, then that's a good thing, all right? And so with water itself is quite hydrating, but in saying that, when things contain calories, all right, or when things contain carbohydrates, when I should say beverages contain calories or carbohydrates, these are the things that are actually going to help hydrate you for longer. So calories, carbohydrates, those two things play a factor. And if we're thinking about milk, for example, milk contains protein, calories, and carbohydrates, which is mixed macronutrients. That also helps with hydration quite well too. And also sodium makes a point here with hydration. So if we're thinking about hydration as a whole, we don't just think, all right, you need to drink heaps of water. And especially we don't want to give recommendations of drinking 3 liters of water a day, 4 liters of water a day, 2 liters of water a day, because everyone's going to be different. And so many things come into factor when it comes to hydration. So we have our sex, right, male or female, where we've been born, if we were born in a humid setting or we're born in a cooler setting, where we're born in the world is going to be a difference. How we're raised, so even if you're born somewhere, then you'll move somewhere, so you may change. What your background is, your fitness level, whether you're taking specific steroids and things like that, or whether you're legal or illegal. What else? There's so many different things. Your thermoregulation. There's so many different things that impact sweat rates and hydration, which is why we do not give a blanket statement of, here, have X amount of water. Especially this stupid thing around at the moment, this 75 hard challenge, which drinking a gallon of water a day, which is 4 liters, is a fucking dumb idea just for anyone. Okay, but those of you who are watching, this is Sports Talk, so we are talking a bit more about athletes who probably will be sweating more. And so one thing we want to make sure we're doing, just to kind of know where you're at regarding hydration, firstly, is drinking enough to keep your urine looking like a straw color. Okay, basically, that's going to be the best thing you can do. A straw color to close to a clear. We never want perfect clear, because if you're perfectly clear, you are peeing away electrolytes. You are losing potassium and sodium and things like that through your urine, because you are overhydrated. Okay, so the first and foremost, making sure you have a straw urine color. Right, now again, our hydration levels can be altered by different types of beverages we have. So you have things that would be more hydrating than water. Powerade, 0. Okay, or any soft drink that's 0 calories, so they contain sodium in them. They will be more hydrating than water. Juice will be more hydrating than water. Coconut water, way more hydrating than water. Milk, hydrating than water. Skim milk is still hydrating than water. So any type of liquid that contains calories or carbohydrates or fats or protein is going to hydrate you more than water. Okay, usually there's not going to be a liquid. I mean, whey protein, for example, will hydrate you more than water, because it's got calories and it's got protein in it. So basically, just try and think, if it's got calories, if it's got macros, or if it has calories, it will have macros. If it has calories, it's going to hydrate you more. It's got sodium, it's going to hydrate you more. So again, this is why even if it doesn't have calories like Powerade Zero, it still has potassium and sodium, which will hydrate you more. Same thing as the Maximus Zero, or whatever it's called, that other drink, or Gatorade, or sugar-free, even sugar-free soft drinks, So having a Pepsi Max is going to be more hydrating than water. And the cool thing when I say like more hydrating, it means that you don't have to drink as often. So if you have, let's say, again, you're having a coffee. Now, here's the thing about coffee and caffeine, tea and all those things. These things do not dehydrate you, okay? If you are having piccolos and shots of caffeine, then yes, you will get dehydrated. Because, caffeine in itself is a diuretic, but the liquid usually will cause a net balance of a negative, right? So if you're having a Monster sugar-free energy drink, you're going to be more hydrated than you are dehydrated, okay? So it's not going to dehydrate you because there's caffeine in Monster. It's funny because no one picks the Monster energy drink. People always say coffee or tea, and those things dehydrate you more. And it's like, no, they don't. And if you're saying that, well, then why don't we talk about Monster being more dehydrating? Because Monster's got caffeine, but people don't make those two correlations. And that's the thing, though. So even though they don't have to, because caffeine, like caffeine itself, again, will be a diuretic, will make you to cause water losses, but if you're having coffee, and it's a skim milk or it's a normal milk and it's a regular or it's a large, then you're not going to dehydrate yourself. Same thing as tea, okay? The only way you'll dehydrate yourself is if you're having, espresso shots or, like this much fucking liquid with tea. For those of you listening, it's like, a tiny amount of liquid in your tea, which you're not going to have. So, as long as we have liquid in there, you are going to be better off than dehydrated, right? So now that we know all of our beverages, again, you can guess what other beverages would be hydrating you. So basically anything with calories in it, you know that these things are going to be beneficial for you. And so again, if you're an athlete and you have the extra calorie expenditure, the cool thing about hydrating from these options is that also they fit into your diet and macronutrients quite well. And if they fit into your diet and the macronutrients quite well, that also means you have the opportunity to be able to get some extra calories in without having to force feed yourself. Because when you are in a high calorie expenditure, it is a mission to force feed yourself, especially when you're full all the time. You don't want to be sick, so liquid calories are a great way to go. And this is outside of training, okay? This is all outside of your training side of things. Now, when it comes to the training side of things, we want to make sure for you that you're getting, you are replenishing what you've lost fluid loss-wise, okay? So one thing you can do when it comes to, finding out how much you sweat during your session is to weigh yourself before the session, all right? So whether there's a scale at the place you're exercising or you have one at home. Oh, pardon me. I always weigh myself at home first thing in the morning before I go and do boxing, and then I'll weigh myself afterwards. And then I'll be able to see how much I've lost, okay? So on average, for me, in an hour of boxing, I lose about 1.8 litres of water, okay? I figured that out by weighing myself beforehand, in my underwear, okay? Going to do the training session, measuring how much liquid I was actually consuming during that time, coming back, weighing myself after, all right? So, yeah, that's correct. That's how I did it, yep. So basically, you want to weigh yourself beforehand, you want to train, you're going to sweat, do whatever, come back, weigh yourself, figure out how much fluid you've lost. Now, if you are drinking fluid during the training session, you have to take away that fluid from your total loss. So just to give you an example, let's say I'm 90 kilos. I go and train for an hour. I come back, I weigh myself again. I'm 87 kilos, so 3 kilos down, all right? That's quite a big drop, by the way. And then I had a litre of Powerade during that session. Well, I now have to take a litre off that, all right? So technically, I lost 4 kilos worth of sweat in an hour, which would be crazy, but I didn't. But that's how we figure it out, okay? So we take away our starting weight, we take away our ending weight away from our starting weight. We then include the amount of liquid we drank during that session, and that gives us our overall total. Now, it depends on how long you've also trained. So if you've trained for 45 minutes, what you'd want to do, if you want to figure out because ideally we're trying to figure out an hourly sweat rate, right? Because sometimes, like most likely, you'll train for an hour, or you can just figure out like your session. Yeah, you can figure out your session sweat rate too. But like, we're trying to get a rough idea about how many liters you'd sweat in an hour. And this is going to be different based on what you're doing, okay? So when I box, I sweat way more than when I'm in the gym, but I still sweat when I'm in the gym. So what we're trying to do here is figure out how we're going to rehydrate ourselves afterwards, okay? And so when we figure out how much fluid we lost, we know we need to drink about 150% extra on top of what we've lost. So if you've lost 4 kilos, you need to drink 6 liters of water over that rest of the day to rehydrate it. That's a fucking lot, okay? Most of you are only gonna lose a kilo, so don't stress about it. You know, if you're gonna lose a kilo, you need to drink 2.5 liters. Is that right? A kilo, 100%, 150. No, you don't. You need to drink 1.5 liters. Okay? So it's not a huge amount, but the more up you go, the harder it's gonna be. And so a lot of you aren't gonna be massive sweaters, but keeping an idea about how much sweat you are sweating, you can focus on rehydrating during that session, or after the session, sorry, because during the session, you know, you got to consider how much you are drinking. You don't want to make yourself feel too full. You don't want to feel like your stomach will cause any digestion issues or anything like that. So, you know, having your liquids during your session, like a Powerade or something like that, is absolutely fine, but don't try and scull like 2 liters of Powerade because you know you're dropping a lot of water. I would say, on average, you know, drink 600 to a litre, 650 mils to a litre in that hour based on how hard that sweat is, and then you kind of go from there, right? Now, again, goes back to session time / you know, litres of sweat per hour, basically, blah, blah, blah. Let's say, again, I've trained for 45 minutes instead of 60 minutes, right? So if I know in that 45-minute sessions, I dropped a kilo in 45 minutes, and then I want to figure out what it would be for an hour, I would divide that 1 litre by 45 minutes to figure out roughly, you know, how much I'm losing every minute, and then you multiply that by 60. So if I lost a litre of fluid within 45 minutes, I would divide the litre by 45. I can't tell you what that would be at the top of my head, but if I do some quick maths really quickly, it would be about 333 mils, 369. Yeah, about 333 mils every 15 minutes. Okay, so that means I would have a sweat rate of about 1.25 litres, give or take 1.3 litres in an hour. Yeah, I think I got that right. Okay, so then you can figure out their hourly rate. So basically, you know, divide the amount you had within the time of minutes, then you can multiply that by 60 to find out your hourly sweat rate. And again, it's going to be different for if you're doing the sport inside versus outside. It's going to be different whether you're doing a sport in an altitude, in a humidity, high humidity place and a low humidity place. Whether it's air-conned or not air-conned, all these things, you know, come into play. And so why it's so important for us to know is, like, you know, when we get an idea about what roughly our sweat rates are based on what we're doing, based on the activities, we can then just make sure we're hydrated at the end of the day. And that's just going to help keep performance high overall. Because again, the key is performance. The key is to perform well. And the key for performance, one of those things, is hydration. Right? So if you're someone who struggles to drink enough water, you know, start off drinking it, put alarms on your phone, drink more liquids or beverages that contain calories or carbohydrates to help hydrate you for longer, which means you won't have to go to the bathroom as much, which means you'll also be hydrated for longer overall, and then making sure we're having about 150% extra, so 1.5 times basically what you sweated out, okay? So again, if you lose 1 kilo of sweat, you want to get 1.5 kilos back in an hour. Not in an hour, you want to get that 1.5 kilos back in, and then you know your sweat rate per hour based on the sport, based on the activity. Is this essential for everything? Not really. You know, it is for those of you who are just heavy sweaters or sweating in general, and you are doing more aerobic or anaerobic activity. Like if you're doing weights, or if you're someone who's normal, like a normal person listening to this and you're not an athlete, just figure out, make sure your urine color is a straw color for the most part. If you do that, you're in good hands. Cool bananas. If you guys have any questions, as always, hit me up at Tyson the Trainer with 2 eyes on Instagram. And until next time, I'll speak to you guys then.